You know, we hear the term the 1% thrown around a lot, usually when people are talking about wealth. But today's source material completely redefines this concept. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the brutal math of what it actually takes to outlast the 99%. We are exploring a truly fascinating breakdown of human motivation and perseverance today. It frames the 1% not as a financial bracket, but as a deeply ingrained psychological state. It's about the pure, unadulterated science of outlasting absolutely everyone else around you. Let's start with a pretty universal truth. Who doesn't want to achieve everything in life? Seriously, think about it. Who doesn't want fame, money, and to be at the absolute top of their field? It's just a fundamental human desire to want the best. We all want the applause, the success, the feeling of having made it. But the source makes a great point here. Wanting to win is literally the easiest part of the human experience. It requires zero effort to simply want a better life. The desire is universal, but as we are about to see, the execution is where the math gets absolutely ruthless. All right, let's dive into section 1, the real price of success. Everyone wants to win, but no one wants to pay the price. So the source material draws a sharp line in the sand right here. It suggests that if you really want to understand why so few people make it to the top, you don't actually need to look at their talent. You just need to look at their pain tolerance. And this completely flips our usual thinking. When we picture a champion, we usually picture the first person to cross the finish line, right? But the 1% successful person is defined completely differently here. They are the individual who is absolutely last on the list of people who give up. Being the very last person on the quitting list is actually the ultimate hallmark of a champion. It's not about who starts the fastest. It's about who absolutely refuses to stop when the enthusiasm inevitably fades. Moving on to section 2, the 4 a.m. challenge, the mathematical drop-off of human willpower. Okay, to illustrate exactly how fast motivation crumbles over time, imagine this scenario. Let's say 100 ambitious people get together in a room and make a firm promise. They all agree to wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning to chase their dreams, work on their goals, or hit the gym. We like to think our willpower is this solid rock, but for the vast majority of us, willpower is honestly more like an ice cube melting in the sun. On day 0, motivation is at 100%. Everyone is nodding, everyone is pumped, the intention is pure. But the reality of that alarm going off in the pitch dark? Yeah, that's a whole different story. And this terrifying drop-off is illustrated perfectly in the data. On day 1, a totally respectable 80 people actually drag themselves out of bed. Not bad at all. But by day 3, the excitement is totally gone, the sheer exhaustion kicks in, and we plummet to just 20 people. By day 6, almost everyone has completely abandoned their ambition and tapped out, leaving just 2 individuals. This essentially proves that you don't even need to actively beat 98% of people. They will voluntarily eliminate themselves within a single week. So ultimately, only one single stubborn person remains out of the original 100. The true 1%. By day 7, or maybe day 10, the second-to-last person finally hits snooze and gives up, leaving just one individual standing. And listen, this person didn't survive because they had better sleep genetics. They survived because they made a psychological decision to place themselves permanently at the very bottom of that quitting list we talked about earlier. And honestly, it doesn't matter if their goal is to become an IAS officer, an actor, a doctor, or join the military. That last remaining person refuses to quit their target. The source emphasizes that the exact same target is fiercely desired by the 99% who fail. The difference isn't the ambition at all, it's the execution. That singular person attains the things the other 99% only complain about not having. Which brings us to section 3, the difference between 1% and 99%, a clash of mindsets. Now, if you're going to join the 1%, you have to actively unlearn how the masses think. The 99% operate heavily on justification, assuming that skipping a day, taking it easy, or cutting a corner doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. The 1%, however, willingly sacrifice 99% of their daily comforts to survive the grind. They understand that every single isolated action compounds. If you want the 1% life, you absolutely have to give up the 99% comforts. And this brings us to an incredibly practical point from the source. You don't have to be a flawless human being, but your intention and dedication to becoming perfect must be absolute. The source is very realistic here. No one is a machine. The 1% stumble, they fail, they have off days just like us. But their intention remains untarnished. They never drop their aim. They maintain 100% commitment to the pursuit of perfection, even knowing they might fall short. It's the intention itself that acts as their compass. Let's head into Section 4, the story of the Riverstone, why patience outlasts raw motivation. Motivation is basically like a spark. It's great for starting a fire, but it burns out super fast. To sustain the journey over months and years, you need steady, relentless patience. The source uses this beautiful natural metaphor here. Imagine a rough, jagged stone falling into a fast-moving river. That's day one. Now, if you pull that stone out after 1 month, guess what? It's still a rough, jagged stone. There is literally no visible change. The 99% would look at that stone after a month and say, well, the river isn't working, I quit. But the 1% leave the stone in the water. Years later, after continuous, relentless friction against the currents and the riverbed, that stone is pulled out perfectly smooth and polished. For us, the absolute crucial takeaway is that your own personal polishing process begins the exact day you hit the bottom of the quitting list and just become entirely stubborn about your mission. Just like the stone, you are not going to see results in a month. You're going to face friction. You're going to get tossed around by the currents of life. But when you make the stubborn, unyielding decision that you will not quit, no matter what happens, that is the exact moment you begin to smooth out your rough edges. That is when you start transforming into the elite. And that leads us to our final section, Section 5. Never giving up, the ultimate commitment. So we've talked about the math, the 4 a.m. challenge, and the patience of that Riverstone. But honestly, none of that really matters without the core engine driving the whole shebang, pure, unadulterated courage. All of this leads to a really stark contrast presented in the source. Dare to leave anything in life, but don't dare to leave courage. The speaker is essentially giving you permission to fail. You can embrace defeat. You can lose money, you can lose opportunities. But the one thing you must never, ever accept is the defeat of losing your courage. Actually, the moment you surrender your courage and your will to fight, you are permanently removed from the 1%. Courage is simply the entry fee that must be paid every single day. So why does this matter? Well, because when you hold onto that courage, your mission echoes outward. You elevate your own name, for sure, but then it grows. You elevate your village, your community, and eventually your country on the world stage. The source mentions that for the people who manage to become the 1% of the 1%, the absolute elite, the entire world stands up and applauds. Your perseverance literally becomes a beacon for everyone else. As we wrap up this explainer, you're left with one final binary choice. We've gone through the math, and we know exactly what the price is. So the only question left is, are you ready to endure the friction and be the absolute last one on the quitting list? The spot is wide open, but only for those willing to pay the toll. I really hope this deep dive gave you a powerful new perspective on what it actually takes to succeed. Keep pushing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.